I know that it's crazy to look at some of the college football scores from Saturday and think that it's abundantly clear that defense still wins championships, but it's the truth and it's the case. I know that it's asinine to look at a game that ended 55-49 and say defense is the reason that somebody won and somebody lost. And yet it's the truth, and that's literally what happened. In an era of college football where we have gotten so preoccupied with explosive, efficient, get rich quick, dynamic offenses, having a defense still matters an insane amount. And not even a spectacular defense, not a great defense, hell, not even a good defense. If you have a timely defense paired alongside a great offense, you got a shot to not only win your conference, but to make a New Year's Six Bowl, to win a national championship, make a college football playoff, whatever. We are somewhat lowbrow creatures. If you were to ask somebody, what was the more exciting game yesterday? Was it LSU and Ole Miss that went 55-49? Or was it Georgia-Auburn 27-20? The answer is really easy. It's LSU Ole Miss. Which was the better played football game? Which was the higher quality game that pitted two really good teams against one another? The perception is still Ole Miss LSU. But both sides featured games that had some big defensive stops and some defensive play that cost their teams the game. For instance, Auburn is in a dogfight with Georgia, who, going back to last week, I think it's preposterous to rank them the number one team in the country, but that's just me. You're playing the number one team in the country at home. You're in a dogfight, and you somehow forget to cover their best player? I don't know how that happens, and yet it did. And that's the difference in the ballgame. Georgia wins 27-20, stays the number one team in the country, stays unbeaten because of defensive incompetence. Ole Miss beats LSU not because of defensive incompetence, but strictly because they got to stop when they needed to the most. And Ole Miss's defense nearly cost them the game on the horse collar tackle on Jaden Daniels late in that game that moved LSU even closer to the goal line. When Ole Miss needed it most, they got a near interception and got a breakup in the end zone on the final play of the game. The final play of the game, Jaden Daniels, who I don't have him in my Sunday Stiff Arm Trophy update, but is knocking on that door. He threw for he threw 4 touchdowns, threw for 414 yards, 4 touchdowns, and ran for 99 more and another touchdown. That's a nice Saturday loss. They didn't lose that game because of him. But you know what? He put the ball on the money. The final play of the game. Put it in the hands of an LSU wide receiver who couldn't come down with it. They didn't lose that game because of him. But when Ole Miss needed a stop most, they got it. So I don't know that there's a way to overstate, one, the importance that we have placed in collective college football fandom, but then also in the coaching ranks and in the college football media of, hey, if you don't have a great offense, I've said before on this show, if you don't have a great offense in 2023, it's a choice that you have made. You have decided, I don't want to have a great offense, an explosive offense, a high-powered offense, if you don't have one in Power 5 college football in 2023. That is a collective choice that you have made. Conversely, having a just bad defense is a choice. I think USC has made the choice to have a bad defense. Why you would make that choice, I don't know. But you've put all your resources, all your collective thoughts, your everything that you can into offense, and then whatever's left for defense, like, yeah, we'll get there eventually. USC should have beat Colorado yesterday by about 35. and they won by 7 because they let Colorado come back in that game because their defense just isn't very good. Now, their offense is good enough to just say, screw it. We're just going to go ahead now and score everybody we play. And that works like 90% of the time, 85% of the time. The problem is in college football, you need to be great 100%. I guess you don't need to be great. You need to win 100% of your games. At least in this version of college football, you need to win 100% of your games. And so when you are operating under a strategy of this is going to work, we're going to win 85% of our games. That's great if winning 85% of your games is the goal. And if Lincoln Riley was the head coach at Oregon State, them winning 85% of their games is like, awesome. This is great. You're a god here. Winning 85% of your games at a place like SC gets you fired. And so I don't know how to impress upon the fans of like, hey, having a great offense is great. It's lovely. It's fun and it's entertaining. And I love to watch it just right alongside you. But if you got national championship aspirations, you better have a pretty good defense to go along with it. When was the last time there was a national champion that you thought like, their defense kind of suspect? Your defense stinks. Doesn't generally happen. Now, a defense can carry a bad offense. Looking at you, Iowa, where at home against a team that's now lost 3rd straight because their head coach was cranking them out on the phone with sexual harassment advocates. Michigan State is not good, and Iowa struggled to beat them at home. But you know how they did it? Defense and special teams. Defense, whether we like it or not, and I don't necessarily like it, it still matters. Nobody likes pitchers' duels. They pretend that they do. Nobody likes slobber-knocking, low-scoring games. If I gave you the option to see 55-49 or 27, you're going to take 55-49. It's just the reality of the college football world that we live in. But the team that is able to get the stop to keep it 55-49 instead of 55-55 is the one that we're going to remember, is the one that's going to be the team that has a brighter future because getting a stop here and there. And again, you can still give up 30 points a game, and it doesn't matter as long as if you can get a stop when you need to, and your team can outscore the other team. So for a school like USC, it's not that damning and not that concerning right now when it probably should be, but they don't have a reason to say, well, we need to change things because they're still winning. But I would be concerned as hell is by letting Colorado back in that game Saturday afternoon, because you only get one. And for a school like USC, who still has quite the schedule in front of them, you can't afford to drop that game against Colorado. You have to. When you look at their schedule, they still have Notre Dame, Utah, Washington, and Oregon. They have 4 of the top 12 ranked teams in the country right now. As I record this, Utah is going to drop because they lost a game to Oregon State. But they got 4 of the top 12 teams in the country left on their schedule. You can't afford to lose to Colorado. You can't afford to lose to Arizona or Cal or UCLA. That option is not available to you. If you drop a game to Washington or Oregon or Notre Dame, you can explain one of those games away. You lose a second game like LSU did yesterday, and that's it. You're done. Your chances of winning a national championship now are 0. LSU is not going to make the college football playoff. LSU does not have a chance to hoist the gold trophy at the end of the season, is my preseason prediction. I said LSU's going to win the national championship. They're not. That ship has now sailed. And does that stink? Does part of college football, does that suck that on September 30th, on October 1st, you no longer have a chance to win the national championship. Yes, I think that sucks, and it's going to change. But it also made yesterday's game incredibly important. It made the final moments of that game, the drama that came with that last drive by LSU. It doesn't really necessarily matter all that much if we get into well, who gives a damn if they lose? They're still going to make the playoff. So it's a double-edged sword there. But because Ole Miss got to stop, their college football playoff hopes are still alive. Now, I don't think they're that strong, but there's still a path for them that if Ole Miss, by God, somehow, some way, wins out, they got a spot in the college football playoff, because that includes beating conceivably Georgia in the SEC championship game after beating Georgia in the regular season. So make no mistake about it, that's a college football playoff eliminator last night, and it was fun and it was exciting. And I know that it's asinine to look at a game that the team gave up 49 points and say, hey, their defense won them that one. But sometimes all it takes is stop. You get in the game every once in a while where you just need stop. And if you get it, you take home the W. And that's what Ole Miss did last night. That's what Iowa did yesterday. That's what USC did yesterday. You just need one. And I'm certain that every coach in America would love to get 15 stops a game, but sometimes it's just the one that you need. And if you can get the one stop you need consistently, that makes you a dangerous, dangerous, dangerous football team. And whether that's a good thing or not, I don't know. It's the Daily Huddle. I'm Garrett Searight. Appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're getting all of our content. You get the post-game press conferences from coaches and programs all around the nation. You get the podcasts, all the recruiting info that we're getting to you. Make sure you subscribe to Saturday Glory. If you're listening on the podcast, give us a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping out the channel. Speaking of the college football playoff, can you remember as wide open of a college football landscape as it is right now? I think there's already some disagreement about who the best team in America is, let alone who the top 5, 6, 7, or 8 teams in America are. The first college football playoff rankings, barring like a bevy of upsets, are going to be super interesting, because there are going to be teams that the perception is that they are one of the 4 best teams in the country, going to be ranked at like number 6 or 7, just because nobody has separated themselves as the 1,000-pound gorilla on the block like Georgia had the last 2 years. Georgia this year, and this isn't a knock on them, it's just reality. You're not going to be able to sustain that level for that long. Georgia's not nearly as good as they have been the last 2 years. That doesn't mean they're not really good. That doesn't mean they're not one of the top 5 to 8 teams in the country. But I think you can make the case that Texas, Florida State, Ohio State, Michigan, whoever you want in that group, are just as good, if not better, than Georgia. And the landscape is completely wide open, and it's exciting because it's going to be intriguing for the next couple of weeks to see just how everything shakes out, because it is so wide open, because there is a decent level of really exciting, really good teams, and not just that, okay, this team is clearly number 1 and everybody else is playing for second. I don't want to watch everybody else playing for second. I want to not know what's going to happen. I don't want this to be UConn women's basketball, where it's just like, okay, they're going to tip off, and once they tip off, it's guaranteed that UConn's going to win. I don't want to see that. I want to see excitement and intrigue and upsets and unpredictability. And for the most part, we've gotten some of that so far this college football season. I'm here for it. Finally, it's time for the Sunday Stiff Arm Trophy update. This is my Heisman ballot. I don't have one. If you want to give me one, that'd be great. It's my life goal is to vote for the Heisman Trophy. But my Sunday Stiff Arm Trophy update, Michael Penix Jr. still has the top spot in my Heisman ballot. He did not throw for any touchdowns, on Saturday in what turned out to be a one-score win over a improving Arizona squad. But he did go 30 for 40, 363. No touchdowns, no INTs. I think he's been the best player in college football thus far, and he would get my vote. USC quarterback Caleb Williams now coming in second in my ballot because watching him and watching the entire game, I was locked into USC Colorado. He is insanely special. He is very, very, very good. Whether that translates to the NFL or not, I don't know. I know that there are detractors. But he had a very similar stat line to Michael Penix Jr., where Michael Penix Jr. went 30 of 40 for 363, except Caleb Williams went 30 for 40 for 403, 6 touchdowns and 1 INT. So they both were 30 for 30 for 40, I beg your pardon. Caleb Williams goes for 6 tutties, while Michael Penix Jr. goes for none. So I'll put Caleb Williams back at number 2. I think it's going to be really hard for him to win a second Heisman Trophy. He's going to have to play at the 30 for 40, 400 yards and 6 touchdowns damn near every week. And I don't know that that's sustainable. And finally, Notre Dame quarterback Sam Hartman is my number 3 on this week's Sunday Stiff Arm Trophy update, because they play every game on national TV. He led a game-winning touchdown drive last night to get the victory over Duke. He's an attractive young man. He plays for a great brand in Notre Dame. And he's the reason that they got the win last night. That fourth down scamper keeps him alive. Did he have a great game? No. That's why I dropped him from 2 to 3. Went 15 for 30, 222 yards. But as long as Notre Dame can play with just one loss, they've got a chance to still make the college football playoff, and he's got a chance to win the Heisman Trophy. Because if it's abundantly clear, and he's going to have some opportunities. They don't have a really strong schedule down the stretch. They're at Louisville next week, then USC, which is a make-or-break game, Pitt, Clemson, Wake Forest, Stanford. If Notre Dame beats USC, there's a real strong chance they're 11-1, and if they're 11-1, it's because Sam Hartman's playing really well. And if Sam Hartman's playing really well for an 11-1 Notre Dame, you can book it, and he'll be in New York. So that is a look at the Sunday Stiff Arm Trophy update. Again, Michael Penix Jr. 1, Caleb Williams 2, and Sam Hartman 3 on my ballot that does not exist. That'll do it for today's edition of the Daily Huddle. Appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. Smash the subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. Give us a 5-star review if you're listening on the podcast. And we'll catch you tomorrow for more college football content here on the Daily Huddle with Saturday Glory.